We are absolutely delighted to have you here. My name is Jenny Anchondo, and I will be here as the moderator for today. And some of you early birds have already been on here for a minute, so that is wonderful. Thank you for getting on early. You're going to be able to catch the event in its entirety. So I want to give you a couple of reminders before we get going. First of all, today's session, which is so critical for entrepreneurs, is time management for entrepreneurs. It's really a make it or break it kind of scenario. So we're doing a deep dive, hour-long focus on that topic in particular. And so here's how this will work. I'm going to introduce our guest. Our guest will give us a nice presentation for about 30 minutes or so, and then it's going to be the time for Q&A. So that means you can type questions in the chat throughout. I will be here and taking notes on everything that's discussed. And during that time, what I will do is be getting ready for the question and answer session. So you can type back and forth with me. You can send in your questions. If we, are having a lot of questions mid-event, we will put them over to Javier. So let's talk about the man of the hour who is here with us. His name is Javier Hernandez. He is a veteran entrepreneur, having built 9 ventures of his own. So let's break it down with numbers. It's 6 successful exits, 1 that's ongoing, and 2 that we'll just say were a learning lesson for him. And I think it's especially important that he's open about that so that we can learn from him. Because if people go through some of these tougher times and don't share it, then nobody's learning. So it's really generous of him to be able to be here today and share about that. He has a relentless commitment to relationship building and helping business owners navigate the sometimes rocky, sometimes dangerous waters of entrepreneurship. Javier is somebody who is respected globally as an innovator and as a problem solver. And we have learned through these sessions that those are just 2 very critical components of entrepreneurship. He's worked globally in 72 countries across 4 continents and 50 states, helping more than 300 companies and not-for-profits to truly advance their mission. So he's somebody that is valuable for us to hear from. We are doing 2 sessions with him back to back. So this is kind of the start of an on-camera friendship and relationship with Javier. And without further ado, Javier, take it away. We are excited to hear your presentation, and I'll be taking questions, and don't forget to post them in the chat, everybody.
Thank you, Jenny, and my thanks to Sarah National here. This is a wonderful forum, and I'm proud to be here. Happy to be sharing with everyone, and I want to hear from you as well. So this is a conversation. So while this will start off as my feeding you, I also need to be fed by you. So I'm also looking to hear from you through this. I'm going to start us off here with just a little bit about myself as to why this notion of time management, and we'll get into it more deeply here. But what is this about? Why is it important? So, a little bit about me. As you heard Jenny say, yes, I've got a nice highlight reel. I've had some great success stories, but the learning that happens through the failures. And so not just the 2 of my own that had that left deep craters, freely admit that, but also having seen and worked through many other people's challenges, their own personal failures, their own way of how not to do things. And so one of the things I bring with me to my audiences, to my clients, to my customers is what not to do and how to go about doing things differently. Because as entrepreneurs, one of the biggest challenges is we are weird, we are strange. We don't think the same as everyone else, we don't act the same as everyone else, and we just don't have kind of the typical day in the life as most people have. But we share the same 24 hours. We share the same amount of sunlight. We share the same pains and trials and tribulations. So it's important as we go about figuring out how to deal with these challenges, how to go about dealing with our days, our daily life, and how to go about dealing with the 24 hours that we have, that we understand how to apply that relative to being an entrepreneur. because the demands on our time are much different and amplified than I would say with other professions. So my background gives me a lot of insight into how not to do some things, how to go about preparing yourself in order to be able to handle time. I want to start with a little story. So there's a man goes to bed, and in the middle of the night he's woken up by one of those urgent pounding on the doors that you know you just have to go answer. So he wakes up, he's bleary eyed, he goes to the door, checks the peak hole, and opens up and sees this man standing there, fairly humble looking, little hat. And the man says to him, I'm handing you this bag. It has $86,400 in it, and you must use every penny of it over the next day. You can't carry any of it over. You can't save any of it over. You can't do anything other than completely use it. And he tips his hat and walks off. And the man takes the bag, looks inside, and yeah, there's some money in there, and takes it over to his kitchen table, dumps it out. He kind of looks at it, and yeah, it seems to add up to 86,400. He's looking at it, and he's remembering what the man said, that you have to spend it all in this next day. And so he starts thinking through, wow, what am I going to do with this? And I wonder what you would do. What would each of you do with this $86,400 that you have to spend every penny? You can't carry it over, you can't save it, but you could do anything you want to with it. Well, I've heard some folks say in the past, maybe they would give it away to charity. Maybe they would pay off lots of bills. Maybe they would spend it with friends and family. Maybe go and buy a car, buy a home, set their home, their mother up with a house, things like that. And so this man does that. This man goes out and does some good work. He spends a little bit for himself. He has some fun with friends and family, and he does all of these things. And he goes to bed the next night feeling pretty good about himself because he managed to spend it all. He goes to bed, falls asleep, middle of the night again, another urgent pounding happening. He wakes up, he's like, oh man, I hope he doesn't want that money back. But he comes back, he goes to the door, same man, same hat. He's got another bag. He opens the door. The man tells him again, here's $86,400. You must spend it all today. Can't carry it over. You can't save it. Uh, have a wonderful day. And off he goes. He goes back to his kitchen table. The man dumps it out, counts it up. Yeah, looks about the same. So now he starts thinking, well, what am I going to do today with this? So he thinks, well, maybe I'll give some more away to charity. Give some more of it away. I'll help some friends out with their bills. I'm going to spread this around some. Help some more friends and family, even the ones that I haven't talked to in a while. And he does that. Spends the entire day doing that. Finally, the night comes. He's going to go to bed, and he feels really good about himself, having done all of this with his $86,400. Goes to sleep and is woken again, middle of the night. Pound, 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 pound. Same man, same little hat, same bag of $86,400 that he hands him. Same instructions. Now he's wondering, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And I'm wondering what's going through your heads. What would you be doing with this? Now on the third day comes and goes. He spends it all, goes to sleep exhausted because now he's getting tired of trying to do all of this with it. Sure enough, again, fourth night, pound, pound, pound. Fifth night again, sixth night, going on for weeks at a time, months at a time, every single night, being handed this. Finally, one night, some months later, he hears again the pounding next door. And so He's not getting it. He's not getting that bag anymore, but it's someone else is. And so the moral of the story here, well, there just so happens to be 86,400 seconds in every 24-hour period. And every day that we get to wake up, we get to decide what we're going to do with that 86,400 seconds. What are we going to do individually with our time? And just as the man in the story, you can spend it with friends, you can spend it with on yourself, you can give it to charities, you can become involved in all sorts of things. But every one of us has but 86,400 seconds in a 24-hour period. And as we'll learn a little bit later, nothing you do will help you earn or gain a second of that back. So I'd like you to be reflecting on that as we go through and as you think about who and what you will be as entrepreneurs, and how you will utilize time as we go about this. So let's get into our discussion and our presentation. Let's take a look at this next slide here. So what makes time unique? Well, unlike money or materials or even talents or even people, it's the only resource you cannot make more of. We each and every one of us will only have the maximum of 86,400, and there is nothing we can do to push that sun back up into the sky for another single moment. So the fact that it's the only resource that does this, we can make more money. I mean, it has its challenges, but yeah, we can make more money, more resources. Yeah, we can go find what we need, more materials, raw materials, resources of kinds, uh, more talents. Yeah, we can learn more. We can educate ourselves. We can surround ourselves with people that know more. We can do things to improve talents. We can even make more people. I mean, there's lots of little ones born every day. There's people you can hire. There's people you can bring on. People you can surround yourself and meet. You cannot earn or gain another second back of your time. So that makes it the most unique, and I would say the most precious and important resource there simply is. Next slide, please. Well, what do we mean by resources, and what makes this so difficult? Well, with resources, all other kinds of resources, you can manage them, you can measure them, you can allocate them. There are systematic methods, and there are many, many learning resources and materials out there to teach you how to manage, measure, and allocate your money, how to do the same for materials and take inventories and find sources and figure out what you're needing. What are the needs that you have for people and talents? How are you going to go about acquiring more? How are you going to go about finding more? How are you going to deploy them? How are you going to grow these resources? And then how are you going to go about repeating these in a cycle that helps you continue going? But what about time? You can't do any of this with time. Let's take a look at this next slide. Let's see what we're talking about. So you can't systematically create more time. You can't systematically find and source more time, but you can allocate it. You can certainly measure it. Every one of us, most of us, have some sort of measuring device for time in some form or fashion. There's lots of ways to measure time, but allocating time becomes the real key of being able to, in some form or fashion, manage time as entrepreneurs. And as entrepreneurs, it becomes all the more critical to understand where you're going to allocate your time. Now, many of us, I know I've done this repeatedly, has led to some of the problems I've had where you don't understand how you're going to use time. You don't know, you don't plan for it, you don't set out with a goal for it. You just kind of figure, well, I'm going to go through the day and I've got my daily planner, and between those two, that'll be enough. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. Being systematic with your time, just as people are systematic with their finances. You would, I don't imagine there would be a financial planner you would ever encounter that simply says, oh, if you just have your checkbook and you kind of go with the flow, that'll be good enough for your financial planning. That's no, that's just not how you do it. Same thing with resource planners, inventory. You take inventory to measure it, but then you figure out systematically how are you going to manage this. Time, similarly, you have to figure out systematically how you're going to allocate your time. And so this takes us into this notion of time blocking. So let's talk about what time blocking is for just a quick second. Time blocking means you're going to systematically create appointments into whatever timekeeping method you use, whether you have a paper planner, whether you are fully digital, whether you do a combination, whatever your method is, you systematically create appointments for types of activities. This doesn't mean that you're writing down exactly, when you've got your doctor's appointments, when you've got this meeting, when you've got this phone call. Everybody does that, but that's not allocating time. That's creating an appointment. Time blocking means that you're going to create appointments for types of activities. On the slide, I show you a few basic ones. Things like, when are you going to do email? When are you going to do phone calls? Messaging. When are you going to spend time driving or following up on errands? Next slide, please. The important part of time blocking is you have to differentiate between when you're going to be receiving or initiating certain kinds of activities. Now, we're going to get into how you actually structure this in just a little bit. But what I mean by that is when you're going to create time blocks for email, I mean blocking time out of your day to just spend time reading emails. That's different than the responding to emails. That's also, for example, making phone calls versus receiving or returning phone calls that have already come in, or text messaging. The reason it's important to differentiate between when you're going to receive and when you're going to initiate, as we'll see here in just a little bit, the importance in that is identifying what's the discipline, what you're going to focus on. Because I have no doubt, every one of us has fallen into this trap. You're working on something, anything. Um, give it, you're trying to formulate a response to something, you're trying to get ready for a presentation, you've got some materials that you're trying to piece together, and boom, the phone rings, or you've got a chime on your desktop, or someone shoots a funny message to you. So those distractors take away from what you were doing, from that focus. And that distraction is costly. Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what we're talking about here a little bit more. The more distracting the activity, the more discipline is needed to stay away from jumping into something. So the real key, the importance of creating time blocks for these activities is so that you'll focus on that activity and not allow a distraction to take you away from achieving it. Here's an important analogy. Maybe some of you have heard this. There's a saying that if you give yourself 6 hours to complete a task, it'll take you 6 hours. But if you give yourself 3 hours or 4 hours to complete that exact same task, you'll get it done in 3 or 4 hours. Now, what's the difference? Time didn't move slower. There wasn't anything improved materially in order to do that same task in a shorter amount of time. It has everything to do with the focus. Now, subconsciously, we know this. Subconsciously, we know that if we put distractions aside, that if we set those away, that we'll be able to get more done. We've heard that for I don't know how many countless books there are out there, how many countless seminars and shows about doing exactly that, getting more done with less time, fewer resources, all of it. But it really comes down to staying focused on task for that period of time. Now, here are some huge distractors. Social media. Social media is awesome in many ways. Many of us rely on it for our ways of living. Many of us rely on it to get the word out about what we do, and it's wonderful for staying connected. And yet, it's one of the biggest time sucks of all time. So, focusing, putting social media and giving it a home, a time block for when you're going to deal with it is one of those critical times. Home matters. Uh, Within a world where now many of us are working from home, a dripping faucet, a whiny cat, something that's squeaking, an air conditioner that breaks down, or today a heater that goes down. I mean, these are all important, but it's a distraction. Family concerns, same thing. What are we going to do about mom? What are we going to, we've got a child that's sick. We've got all of these concerns. Again, not trivializing them by any means, but they distract us from what we were trying to achieve. Financial concerns, just as important. All of those worries, we've got a bill that comes up, we've got a chime that comes in from the bank, or we've got someone not willing to pay or paying slow, or whatever that might be. These are some of the biggest distractors that we have in our lives, and we have to address them. It's not like we can simply ignore them, but if we give them a time, a home designated, we're more likely to be able to achieve the other things. Next slide, please. And as you go through creating blocks of time, and I'm going to show you the exercise of how we're going to do this. I'm going to ask you, everybody at your desks, to take a moment to do this. As you create blocks of time, remember yourself, remember your health, remember to read, remember to take time for reflection, take time for you personally, to decompress, to take a walk, to just breathe fresh air, or to have a glass of wine, or whatever it might be. And then your passions, the things that you care about, whether it be church or community or volunteering or, elections or just spending time with friends. These are all blocks to remember to build in to your time blocking so that you remember yourself as well. I'll take a moment here to tell another quick story. This is a famous one, so I can't take credit. But we may have heard the story of the big rocks. If you go on YouTube and look up the video or look up the story of the big rocks. So a professor is teaching his students. He walks in with two buckets and a set of some stones, a set of golf balls, a set of pebbles, and some sand and a couple of beers. And he sets them on his desk. And in one bucket, he fills it first with sand and then starts putting in some of the rocks and some of the stones and the golf balls and pebbles. And pretty soon, there's just not room for anything. And then he repeats the process with the other bucket. But this time, he puts in the big stones first. Then he puts the big stones up to the top and he asks his students, how many of you think this is full? And yeah, there's some students raise their hand. Sure enough, they think it's full. Then he takes some of the golf balls and he sets some of the golf balls in there and shakes it up, and some of the golf balls fit. And now he asks, how many of you all think it's full? Some more hands go up. He stops for a second, takes the pebbles, shakes the pebbles into the bucket, shakes the bucket until it settles and the pebbles find homes in between all of these. And now he asks, okay, how many of you think is it full now? Some more hands go up. And he takes the sand, pours the sand in, shakes it, packs it down, shakes some more sand in there, packs it down even further until he actually manages to use up all the sand. And now he asks, okay, now how many of you think it's full? So all the hands go up. Then he takes the beers, opens it up, pours one into the bucket, and the entire beer fills up. And the analogy, the moral of the story, he says, is you know what? If you start off with all of the tiniest details filling up your entire focus, your entire bucket, you're not going to have room for anything else. But if you pay attention to life, your health, your family, the big stones that you know you have to take care of, and you fill your bucket up, your life up with those first, then you can start adding some of the smaller pieces, some of the golf balls, which might be, a car and educate, those smaller but important pieces. And then the little pebbles that start flowing in there, you can fill that up further. And all these things will start finding homes, finally with the sand, with those fine little details. And then one of his students raises their hand and asks, but professor, what were the beers for? What is the point of the beers? And he starts drinking the other one and he says, that's just to show you that if you do it right, there's always time for a couple of beers with friends. So remember to yourself, remember what's important to you as you create your blocks of time. Next slide, please. I want to show you what my calendar looks like 25 years of doing this. And here's some examples of what a day in my life looks like now, having done this in a disciplined fashion. Is I wake up nice and early. I've got my 3 W's. That's wake up, workout, and worship. That's just kind of where I start my morning. And then I go right into a calendar review. I make sure I understand, okay, what have I set out for myself this day? And what do I need to rearrange, change? What do I need to do here in this calendar? I clear my social media early. So I'm not engaging in social media. I'm just getting through my messages. I'm looking through the cats that are playing with the dog videos. I do all of that early, get it out of the way. And then I start right off reaching out to people. I'm reaching out via email, I'm reaching out via messages and saying, okay, I want to engage with you. Here's something I want to do for you. And I'm doing it early because I want to be near the top of their list as they're starting their day. Then I give myself a blank space. And that blank space, these blank spaces in here are on purpose to give myself a time and a moment to just kind of catch up with my morning. Make sure I've said good morning to everybody that's in my life, that I spend a moment with the dog, that I spend a moment with everybody that needs my attention personally before I get into the rest of the day professionally. And then I go through and I've created these chunks of time and these blocks, I even build in, you might see breaks, huddles with my team, lunches. I schedule these so that I remember them, so that I make sure I have these appointments. And what's critical in here is the discipline to not start moving things. I build in times in here where where I'm going to accept meetings, where I'm going to accept phone calls, meaning, and this is hard, this takes discipline, I'm not simply reacting to every pop up, to every caller ID, to every text message. I'm not reactive. I'm being purposeful and allocating my time in the way I need to do it. And then you'll see I cut off around 5:30 or so there. That's because after that, it's all my time. It's all time for the kids. It's all time with the dog and the family and everything I need to do just for me. Now, does that mean I'm not going to read an article? No, I'll read articles in there. I'll pay attention to some things that need to be paid attention to in there. But as a rule of the day, This is how I structure my days. Next slide, please. So, where to begin? Because this can be overwhelming very quickly. So, let's go through an exercise that's going to take us 4 weeks long. And I'm going to challenge you. In week one, for every business day of the week, and just focus on your business days. We won't touch the weekends just yet, but just your business days. Go in there and purposely create two 30-minute blocks for each day of a few different types of activities. So I give you some examples here. Start with the basics. And this is harder than you think, so don't underestimate them. So create a block for outbound calls. The everybody hates cold calling, so structure some time in there. Create some outbound calls. Uh, Read the emails. Do industry news. Read a personal book. Call a family, call friends, take a walk, work out. But do a few of these and structure two of them, 30 minutes every day. And here's the hard part. Do only that scheduled activity for those 30 minutes. Put your phone on do not disturb. Step away from the office, step away from wherever you need to be, and don't be disturbed. Do only that activity for 30 minutes and stay disciplined. Don't reschedule any of those 30-minute appointments with yourself. Next slide. Week two. On week two, you can now create four 30-minute blocks every day for types of activities for every business day. Here now, I want you to have for every day 3 business slots and 1 personal. So purposely create 3 business slots. So here you're going to keep the basics that you were doing out of week 1, but now add a challenge. Like I said, those cold calls, maybe create some content. Organize your emails. Those of you that have 15,000 unread emails, I'm talking to you right now. Those of you that have lots of flagged emails that you intended to get to 4 months ago, here's a good time period to get in here. Organize your emails, maybe create folders, maybe do those kinds of things. And then also, personally, maybe find something that you want to volunteer for, or just some meditation time, or just declutter, right? Go and hold something tight, see if it gives you any joy, and if it doesn't, toss it out. That method, or whatever method. Spend that time focused. Again, do only that activity for those 30-minute slots. Phone on do not disturb, and don't react to things. Stay disciplined to the appointments of the entire week. Of these 20 slots, you can reschedule a maximum of 3, because I know it gets hard. So you can reschedule 3 of them, but stay disciplined to your slots. Next slide, please. All right, third week. Now we're really starting to go big. Now you're going to create 4 30-minute blocks and 4 15-minute blocks. Why fewer amount of time? Well, because again, if you allocate yourself a little less time to focus and get something done, you're likely to get it done in that period of time. So now we're talking about time blocking 3 hours of every business day. Again, it'll be tough, but this is the challenge. So you're going to do 3 of those 30 minutes for business, 1 of those 30 minutes for personal. Similarly, 3 of those 15-minute blocks for business and 1 of those 15-minute blocks for you personally. Keep to the basics, but in here now, add when you're going to be willing to accept meetings and phone calls. So make those blocks, take those blocks where you're going to be willing to accept meetings and phone calls. And if someone is intruding on another time, reschedule them, reset them so that they fit within the time that you've allocated. I mentioned earlier how hard it is for us to not be reactive. And this becomes the real challenging time. What this is going to teach you to do is to teach you to say no, and saying no strategically with a manner of allocating your resources in the way you have to. In the same way that everybody that asks you for money, you don't say yes to, you have to turn some people down. You have to turn some people down for some of your knowledge and skill sets, not because you're a mean, terrible, awful person. You just have to allocate correctly. More important than anything else is your time. So if you say yes to everyone demanding of your time, you very quickly run out of it. So stay disciplined to your appointments, reschedule a maximum of one of those slots. Next slide, please. And then this is how we're going to finish up in week 4. Get to the point now where you're time blocking 4 hours of every day. And now start adding your weekends. Start treating your weekends as your personal time in this process. Experiment a little bit. It's okay to experiment, make this work for you. Try to structure your days a little differently. I tend to get bored easily. So if I do the same thing the same way every single day, I'm out. But so I mix it up a little bit, but I stay disciplined to the process of time blocking for my days. Remain disciplined. And now the real big challenge is 0 reschedules. Remain disciplined. So if you have a slot for meetings or phone calls where you're expecting the phone to ring, but for some reason the phone just doesn't ring, do something where you're outreaching to someone else, reaching out via messenger, via email, via phone call, uh, go next door and say hello to someone. I mean, be interactive, but remain disciplined to the task at hand, which is that personal communication. And here it's the whole process and point of learning to say no. Steve Jobs, one of my personal heroes, would say people think focus means saying yes to the things you've got to focus on. But in fact, that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas, good intentions, good people that there are. And that is the primary difference of being an entrepreneur and trying to manage time. Next slide, please. And that kind of brings us to, what does that whole thing mean? Time management does not exist. It is a myth. It's a fallacy. There is no such thing as managing time. And why? Because you can't make more of it. It is unmanageable because it moves unceasingly and uncontrollably. It is the one element in our entire lives that you can't make more of, that you can't force on. It comes at you. So you can't manage it. You can measure it. Again, we got watches, we got ways of measuring it, and you can allocate it. And that is your control. Because as the entrepreneur, more than anyone else, as an entrepreneur, you get to decide whatever you're going to do with it. No one tells you what to do. Now, there's consequences, right? If you choose not to spend time with a customer, that customer may choose to spend time with your competitor. If you choose not to do certain things, some of those consequences exist, but you get to decide. You get to choose. Choose wisely. And this has been my time. Last slide, please. For those of you that want to reach out, that want to connect with me, you've got my URL there where if you just hold up your phone, you can capture my contact information, or my contact information is there. My company, Business Rising, just so you all know, we happen to be the one phone call for all your facility needs. So we take all of those issues that you might be dealing with when it comes to whether it's your place of business or your home office, or whether it's a 1,000 square foot eyebrow threading salon or 100,000 square feet of warehouse space or office building. That's what we do. I'm Javier Hernandez. My company is Business Rising. And thank you for giving me some of your time.
Javier, wonderful. Oh my gosh, that was so excellent. And I hope that everybody watching found it as interesting as I did. Really, just some simple, tangible tips for getting by in business in general. So, I'm going to go through a couple of different questions. And then please know, you guys, now that he's wrapped up and you've kind of been able to digest the concept a little bit, I'm still monitoring the chat here. I know some of you have sent some directly to me, some people saying, I do that, or I've done a version of that. So please feel free to continue to post questions in here. And this was a really good one from someone in the chat. Is they're saying you haven't presented a time factor for being put on hold. I mentioned this because some of the business conducted this week involved losing nearly 4.5 hours kind of on ignore or on hold, right? Waiting for the concept. Any sort of advice for managing that, or for keeping that at bay, or doing another task while you're on hold? I don't know. You let us know, Javier.
So we can't control what other people do. We can only control how we react to it and what we do during it. So oftentimes, while I'm waiting for a response, while I'm waiting on hold, then that's where I squeeze in an instant message. That's where I key out a text message. That's where I key out a thought. I might be just kind of free thinking, going through some creative problem solving, and I jot down a couple of bullets. And I keep it short because I might get disrupted. I mean, I was the one initiating the call, so I'm asking for them, but I try to keep it quick so that I don't lose track of what I was doing. I tend to use voice messenger a lot. I tend to use digital notes a lot to help me keep gathering those up, those pebbles, so that when I'm ready to throw them and put them into action, they're there for me.
That's great, really helpful. Also, somebody's wondering if it's possible to get a copy of that time blocking slide. I know you shared some of your contact information at the very beginning, and I don't know if y'all can see it up on the screen right there in the slide, the website and everything like that. Is that possible?
Absolutely. I make myself very easy to find. So you can find me through the website. You can find me through SARE. You can find me at my contact information here. We can put that slide back up. But yes, I'll be happy to share that with anybody who's interested in receiving it.
Okay, another question about what are your thoughts on time management software and sort of using that along with your own timekeeping measures? Is that something that you've experienced or used?
So what I've discovered is, again, because time management doesn't actually exist, what the software simply does is it helps you systematically allocate. So whatever I've been often asked, which time management method should I use? And the answer is the one that you're actually going to use. Because if you're just going to download a piece of software and expect it to extract your thoughts, feelings, and priorities and take it out of your mind and put it on a screen, that hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. You have to actually utilize it. So whether you use a spreadsheet, whether you use a digital calendar, a paper calendar, or any other project management or time management software, they're all there. They're all useful. But if you don't actually use it, if you're not disciplined, if you don't keep that discipline to use it, then none of them are going to help you.
Right. It's like working out, right? It's like do the workout that you're actually going to do. There's no best workout. That's a sort of how I am digesting what you just said. Now, when somebody feels like, you know what, because you included, which I so appreciated, you included, family time, some reading of books, some volunteer time, some things like that. And when the entrepreneur gets busy, the inclination is to say, well, I don't really need to do those things. So I'm going to instead use those time blocks for more emails and more phone calls. And can you speak to why it's important to keep those more personal blocks of time in?
Right. So it's hard enough for the entrepreneur to be able to separate themselves from the business. And many times I believe that there simply is no separation of the individual from the business. So the question becomes, how are you going to utilize this time? And if if you think of it, if you do the analogy of dieting, if all you eat are the rich, heavy, thick foods, then you're not going to feel very good. You need some lightness. You need some veggies. You need some fluff. You need some dessert. I mean, all of those things are necessary in order to enjoy and be balanced. And we all know there for an entrepreneur, especially, there is no balance of time. It's a function of deciding when and to what are you going to allocate time. So remember yourself. Remember to spend time on yourself. Remember to spend time decompressing and sharing with others and doing however you go about dealing with it, because being an entrepreneur is lethal. I mean, it will get to you. So be be attentive to yourself and to your family.
Javier, what were some of the businesses that it sounds like you're now in the business of helping businesses, but prior to this, what were some of those ventures? It helps people to kind of understand where you're coming from.
Well, so I have had a consulting practice over the last 22 years or so. So that's one of them. That continues. I also now have this venture, this business over the last couple of years, focusing on facility needs. Ventures that I've gone on, we did electronic medical records and biometric technologies for home healthcare. That was a long time ago. I've also had a massively multi online player gaming system. I've done holistic health and cosmetics and well-being. I've done a couple of others, some technology and telecommunication things that I had some fun with. And so, yeah, it's been a pretty broad spectrum, and not because I was out there looking for ways to get wealthy. By the way, seeking to get wealthy is the worst way of being an entrepreneur. You will almost certainly fail. But I was just trying to solve a problem. I was needing to get something done that wasn't being done or wasn't adequately being done. And so I just thought, okay, let me see if I can find the right people to surround myself, and let's get this done correctly.
Fabulous. Now, let's talk about the actual sort of arranging of the time. It seems to me that the people who can actually get a hold of their schedules and stick to this are going to be the outliers, even if they weren't the ones with the best idea, even if they weren't the ones with, the most succinct structure, because it is such a challenge for people to remain focused. I mean, is this the secret sauce? Just time blocking and sticking to it?
Well, it's helped me. It's been my discipline over the last 25 years. And I have proven to myself many times that if I don't keep the discipline of put the phone down, if I don't keep the discipline of shut the door or step out, step away, and when I have found myself being just perpetually available, if I keep myself always available, or I'm reacting to every text message, I'm in real time, every email in real time, I'm answering every phone call that pops up, I am far worse off than than by keeping to the discipline.
It's so tempting though when somebody sees something that's outside of the business to just like, "Oh, I'm gonna respond to that really quickly." Right?
It'll
It's
just
very
take a second.
yeah, like it'll just take a second. Oh, I'll call back. Like you said, a family matter, a personal matter, or I'd really wanted to hear back from this person. I've been waiting. So or refreshing, like I wanted to hear back, I want to hear back, I want to hear back. How do you keep that? Is it just the knowledge that you'll be more efficient if you stick to your plan?
Yes, but also treat yourself like your own customer or your own business partner. When you're on a phone call with someone you do business with and they constantly interrupt your conversation so that they can go pick up another call or answer something, or if you're there at the meeting sitting down with lunch and they're tapping away at their phone, it's kind of rude. You kind of feel like you're not engaged, you're not fully there. And the fact of the matter is that's true. That's exactly what's happening. So if you treat yourself like your own customer, you treat yourself like your own business partner, you treat yourself like your own life partner, then keep those appointments for yourself. Don't be rude to yourself. Don't take away from your own focus to yourself, from your own commitment to yourself. Keep that in mind. And no, it's not easy. This is a habit that has to be formed by breaking all other habits. So
That
it's hard.
Yeah, that was a really good way of explaining that. I hope that that drives home for everybody, keeping the appointment and treating yourself like your business partner. That just really visually, I think, makes things more helpful. I would love to hear what is your morning routine like? What is your day like? How do you plan out your day? And how did
Yeah,
you
so
squeeze this in?
well, so because I'm disciplined, let's bring up that slide if we could with the time block on it, with my calendar on it. But what I do is I start off by focusing on waking up properly, taking a breath, spending a little time working out, spending a little time in prayer, just kind of doing that, because that focuses me, centers me, and really helps me say, okay, I'm going to begin with myself and begin with my relationship with myself, with God, and just kind of starting with myself. And then I get into what are the trials and tribulations and rigors of the day. But
Mm.
I focus a good 90 minutes at the beginning on just me because later on, it's going to be hard to find 90 minutes. It just is. But because I remain disciplined and I say no to the things that are going to take me away. And now, okay, a little plug for next week. Come on back next week because next week is about making decisions, critical path decision making. So, how are you going to take decisions now based on what's most important to you and how are you going to figure out what's most important? So, because I'm so disciplined in saying no to things that distract me, that take me away from my critical path, I have time available to do other things and to focus on my passions. And one of my passions is teaching, helping, instructing others how not to take those pitfalls.
Excellent. Yeah, so it looks like you're starting early. If this is your actual thing that we're seeing
It
up
is,
here, the 5 a.m., right? So you're starting 5 a.m., but you're ending by 5 p.m. And I think, gosh, a lot of entrepreneurs would think, wow, if I can really get this down, the promise is that once you get into a flow, and then of course certain seasons are busier than others, if you can get into a flow and be done by 5 p.m., that sounds like a gift.
and it really is because it's not just a gift. For me, it's a gift to myself because come 6 o'clock ish or so, now I can open up that bottle of wine. I can spend time with my kids. I can make whatever performances there's going to be. I can go catch a movie. I can spend time with my fiance. I can do all of those things. I can take the dog and go for a run and take him to the park. I mean, it frees me up to do all of that. But it's because I say no so strictly.
So let's talk about saying no. When you work at a regular sort of a 9 to 5 job, and maybe you get like your 10 days of vacation a year and your 2 weeks of sick or 10 days of sick or whatever, that's sort of like seems to be that standard that people have. When you work for yourself, you don't have that. So, how do you manage things like, okay, I need a doctor's appointment, or I need to get my hair cut, or I need to go to the dentist? All of those things, if you work at a regular job, maybe you can take a half day and you don't have to worry about the responsibilities. When you're an entrepreneur, you still have to get all of your responsibilities done. So how do you schedule in? Is it like one day a month? Is it, well, how do you do that?
Well, so this just happens to be one day. Other days look differently slightly than this. But yeah, I've got a day once a month where I know I'm going to take care of personal errands, right? I'm going to go get a haircut. I'm going to make sure I've got a checkup done, take care of the oil change. I mean, just I build that in ahead of time so that I'm not reacting to it. And the other trap that we'll fall into, it's easy to start rescheduling these. That's why I made that challenge in there. Don't reschedule more than you need to, or more than you can. Because it's easy to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to take out this email time. I'm going to push it to Friday. I'm going to push it to weekend. And what happens? Friday afternoon comes along, or Saturday, or Sunday, and now you don't have time for family. You don't have time for the movie. You don't have time to go get to this appointment or that appointment. So by not rescheduling, being disciplined, build those times in there. I could just as easily, instead of saying that I'm going to clear my social media, that I'm going to, well, not at 6 o'clock in the morning, but that I'm going to go hit my doctor's appointment, that I'm going to take the pets to the veterinarian. I build those times in there. I pre-plan them because I know I have to get them done. Otherwise, I'm going to be faced with an emergency later that I have to react to.
Right. Accurate. Absolutely. It's very, very, very true. When you think about how you are planning everything out, again, I'll reference somebody transitioning from a regular sort of 9 to 5, 40-hour week job. Everybody leaves saying, I'm going to work for myself because then I can make my own schedule. I can do what I want. And early in that entrepreneurial journey, working for yourself and do what you want often means working Saturday and Sunday. For people who are still in that grind where they haven't gotten the time blocking down and they haven't prioritized their schedule, explain what a gift that is to give yourself your weekends back and your evenings back, or whatever time it is that you want. Perhaps you're a night owl, or you're, an early bird, or whatever it is, but having some bits of time to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And so the myth is that somehow entrepreneurs flip a switch and all of a sudden have free time. That's not the case. You still have, I still have, while it's my decision on how I'm going to use my time, I've got 300 bosses, customers telling me that they need my time. I've got partners, I've got employees, I've got people that I'm responsible. I've got a family that demand my time. So it almost doesn't matter whether you're a 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever your job is, whether you've got a night shift, 12 hours, 3 days a week, 3 nights a week, or whether you are a night owl, a morning owl, just wherever. Time blocking, the discipline of allocating your time in whatever ways you're going to need to do it, personal, professional, a job, kids, everything else, gives you the freedom because now you've got something systematic that you can rely on and be proactive to. You can plan for, as opposed to being reactive to everything, which means you're behind on everything, which means that all the pressures of the world simply amplify even more and life is harder. That's what I think.
Well, we don't want life to be harder. We want to be smooth and successful, and just be able to follow all these time management, whatever time management means, is for entrepreneurs. So, Javier Hernandez, thank you so much. Absolutely delightful to be able to chat with you and learn from you today. And I'll repeat the website once again: businessrising.com. And for more on Sarah's programs, There is a link in the chat right now. You can even copy that and then paste it when it's done to take a look at. There is a wide array of programs for you to take advantage of. And then the YouTube channel has a replay of all of these. So I know somebody was asking for a slide, for example. If you wanted to go back and just watch the whole replay and really plan out your time blocking, that will be available before our next session. And our next session is with Javier. So we are really looking forward to that. And Javier, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and tell you that I'm looking forward to next week.
Likewise. Thank you all so very much.